If China has its way, millions of Americans could starve. Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell. You smell that? That's the smell of sulfur. And no, that doesn't mean the world has ended and we're all collectively descending into hell. Then again, I feel that way every time I go on X. But no, I'm talking about sulfur because it's actually a key ingredient in phosphate fertilizer, the fertilizer we all depend on to grow our food. It's not human sacrifice anymore, I know. I was surprised too. I can't keep up with all these modern technological developments. So sulfur is very important if we want to keep feeding ourselves, something I like to do at least 16 times a day. That's how I maintain this physique. Gotta keep up with my macros, bro. Well, good news, according to the US Geological Survey, America makes roughly 70% of the sulfur we need. Makes sense the US is full of fertilizer, given all the BS we have to put up with. And the rest we can easily get from Mexico and Canada, so nothing to worry about, right? Episode over. Except, this is where China comes in. And what China's doing right now is hurting Americans in their pocketbook every time they go to buy groceries. And in the worst case scenario, could lead to mass famine. What is it with communism and famine? You see, the US may make 70% of the sulfur we need, but about a quarter of that is actually sold to foreign countries. Yep, should have known we'd export our BS. And can you guess where most of that goes?
China!
One of the biggest buyers is Yuantianhua Group. It's a Chinese state-owned fertilizer company, heavily subsidized by the Chinese Communist Party. It takes the raw sulfur and makes it into usable fertilizer. Another case of how Chinese industry exists by leeching off America. So while the US makes plenty of sulfur, China makes most of the fertilizer. And China is weaponizing its supply chains. According to this report by the US-China Economic and Security Review Commission, China is accelerating its weaponization of supply chain choke points. Basically, China is importing less from the world while making the world more dependent on its exports. You can tell they're the good guys because they have the same economic model as a crack dealer. We saw this last year when the world collectively freaked out after China put trade restrictions on rare earth elements. Basically the lifeblood of all modern tech. And if you're thinking, oh, that problem was so last year, well, China just banned rare earth exports to 14 European companies. China just can't handle anyone criticizing them. All those minerals, and the one they don't have is copium. But they'd never do something similar with fertilizer, right? Right? Yeah. About half of the world's sulfur shipments go through the Strait of Hormuz. Good thing there haven't been any catastrophic closures this year. That's causing shortages, but that isn't the real problem. The real problem is how China responded by restricting fertilizer exports, essentially weaponizing fertilizer against American farmers. This is bad on so many levels. Even though America makes so much sulfur, the World Bank estimates that fertilizer prices will go up by 30% this year because of all this. American farmers can't afford that. But you know who can afford it? Chinese state buyers, backed by taxpayer subsidies, can pay premiums that American fertilizer producers simply cannot match. So China buys the sulfur, hoards the fertilizer, and now we all have to pay more for food. But at least China hasn't engineered a famine, yet. This is how China weaponizes supply chains. It's not an accident, it's not the free market. It is the deliberate actions of a hostile authoritarian regime bent on destroying America. At which point they'd go, shoot, where are we going to steal ideas from now? As Forbes says, China uses its state-subsidized economy to drive up global prices. The good news is there is something the US can do to protect the supply of fertilizer for our crops and our precious, precious supply of high fructose corn syrup. And no, it's not feeding cows Taco Bell. The Trump administration has at its disposal export controls that they should use to ban China from buying US sulfur for as long as they hoard the fertilizer they make with it. Meanwhile, Congress should, just enforce existing trade laws against state-subsidized foreign monopolies like China uses. Though I know asking Congress to do their job is like asking an earthworm to solve cold fusion. And here's a good one. Sulfur is a byproduct of oil refining. And if you haven't noticed, gas prices are pretty high right now, also because of the Strait of Hormuz. That also affects farmers. So another thing the US could do would be to cut the red tape blocking more domestic oil refining. We get more oil, we get more sulfur, amazing. Now, one thing the Trump administration is already doing is, at the beginning of July, the USDA announced $500 million in funding to expand US domestic fertilizer production. To quote the wise Dr. Ian Malcolm, that is one big pile of shit. Which is great because relying on China for the foundation of our food supply is probably not a good idea. Unless you want to go back to ensuring we grow enough food with human sacrifices. And speaking of basic needs, the only reason I can make this show is because of the support of the China Uncensored 50 Cent Army. Those are the fans who support the show on my exclusive website, ChinaUncensored.tv. So as a thank you, I'll answer one of their questions on the show. Today's question comes from Tu Gun Jr. Is there any credibility to the claims made in this video, claiming Xi has been put on notice by those within the party? Ah yes, the claims that Xi is not in fact the top dog of the CCP, but that he's actually been purged, or is going to be purged. I've covered this a lot. These rumors really began last year, when it was rumored that General Zhang Youxia, backed by a cabal of party elders, had staged a coup against Xi. The poo coup, I like to call it. We have fun here. So that was it. Xi was gone out of the picture. Except then Xi hosted a major military parade, and then led a major meeting of the CCP later that year, and then had Zhang Youxia purged. And yet, these rumors persist. That video says this cabal of party elders is telling Xi to resign by August 30th or else. So, let's see. I'm fairly confident in saying Xi will not step down by then. But this is why you follow China Uncensored and not some random AI China news channel. Those are cheap and easy to make and often just flat out wrong. China Uncensored takes a whole team working together to bring you the highest quality China news with the absolute middest jokes. That's why I want you to join the China Uncensored 50 Cent Army. Just click this button here or the link below to support our work. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.